So let's start now. How's that sound, Adrian?
Sounds good. Ready to go.
Great. So thank you everyone who's joined us today. We're here to talk about how you can stay in the game with a reduced budget. My name is Brook. I'm the owner of Mason Interactive. Adrian down there is our director of media, and this is really his presentation today. But we're going to try to be useful to anyone who's listening, and this is not a sales pitch. We're trying to show empathy for people's positions and give some specific examples about how our clients are staying in the game with a reduced budget. So our agenda to go over this is to just acknowledge the current landscape, talk about the cost of customer acquisition, how to attract new customers with a reduced budget, the risk of abandoning or focusing too hard on remarketing, which is always a temptation, and how that funnels into the ideal marketing funnel, and wrap up with some key takeaways. We are going to show some client examples of this in a few minutes. That's sort of the biggest piece of this. So just very briefly, just so you know where we're coming from in case you don't know, we're a boutique agency focusing in direct-to-consumer emerging brands in Midtown Manhattan. We're opening a second office in North Carolina. We use search and lead gen and social and SEO and display and email and ORM and remarketing to help our clients, some of whom you know, sell their products direct to consumer. So the current landscape, let's acknowledge this. The current landscape has logistical challenges. Supply chains have been cut. People cannot get their product in their warehouse, they can't sell it. People have cash flow issues. You might have a store, you might be a business that depends on, we have a number of clients whose business depends on brick and mortars, and those brick and mortars are shuttered. And their direct-to-consumer e-commerce business is a small, but growing, but small piece of the whole puzzle. And they have cash flow issues, and I want to be open about that. And all these things combine to create an economic cratering, honestly, that's creating a lot of uncertainty. We believe that the right approach is to stay useful, to stay in market at a lower cost, and to stay on top of your customers' mind. So I want to, on the next slide, take a look at an example. I have a client and a friend now, Joel, who often uses examples from other industries to talk about our examples, and we'll get to the direct-to-consumer. I think it's useful. Most car manufacturers don't make a profit from the sale of electric vehicles. And if we were in the room together today, like we used to be, and like we will be again soon, I would say, hey, everyone out there, raise your hand if you think you're going to buy an electric vehicle in the next 5 years. And most of you would say yes. The issue is that EVs cost, on average, according to McKinsey, $12,000 more to produce than vehicles powered by internal combustion engines. And car makers often struggle to recoup these costs through pricing alone. So what's going on now in the current environment, we know, is that the result is that apart from a few premium models, maybe Tesla, car manufacturers lose money in these. So we know that car manufacturers are shutting their production down on EVs. They're furloughing their EV staff. And as an analogy to our business, I don't know if I think that's the right idea. I think we're all going to buy EVs soon, and I think that they should be staying in market and continuing to produce new technology that will make these cars more effective. And we'll get to direct-to-consumer in a second, but I think analogies are useful. And we should also acknowledge our approach. This is some of our staff, most of them, but not all of them, last Christmas, and we look forward to being all together in a room again. But we're eating our own dog food. We're drinking our own medicine. We're not taking the car manufacturer approach and saying, cut the EV division, let's focus only on profitability. What my company is doing is focusing instead on trying to be useful to prospects and to our clients. We're trying to publish data like this today to whoever's listening, to create value and be trustworthy, to stay current and be on top of things, so that when we all come out of this, we all have our best foot forward. Most of our clients have had staff reductions or furloughs. We at Mason have had to furlough some employees. We've been lucky enough to bring a bunch of them back already, right? So I want to acknowledge that the current environment is tough, but I also want to acknowledge that I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and we are investing in the future of the business, building out new softwares and hiring new people, because we have to put ourselves in the right position for going forward. And I say that as a business owner, because I know it's easy to say, well, sales are down, and they are down. Sales are down, let's just cut to profitability. I fundamentally do not believe that is the right thing to do, and it is not how I am running my business. So if we can accept, I think in the next slide, if we can set the analogy of maybe the EV business is being a little short-sighted when they're cutting all the EV production, and I'm trying not to be short-sighted by investing in producing relevant content and being forward for people. I want to take those two pieces and let Adrian now, our director of media, use the analogy of the leaky bucket and how we're staying in front of customers and being valuable to our customers and making them successful with a lower budget. So Adrian is our director of media. He's got 11 years experience, mostly at big agencies, big business, Anheuser-Busch, BMW, and now he's at Mason Interactive working on the side with our different kinds of clients. Mr. Padron?
Thank you so much, Brook. And thank you everybody that's joining us today to talk about these concepts. The customer bucket, I think, is one of the most simplified and logical ways to think about our website and our traffic base. We have to always be trying to think about the future. And what we really want to discuss with you today is how you can invest in your brand today to plan for future success. This specific example I want to talk about, since we're talking about logistics and fulfillment or production challenges, is really tied to those people that are not able to move as much product as they once were able to. So they are reacting with cash flow restrictions and cash controls. That can be detrimental to the future if you stop filling your bucket, because it's more costly to acquire a new customer than it is to nurture an existing. If we were to even take this away from a customer acquisition focus and just think about a business and employees, I think everyone has probably heard that it costs more to hire a new employee than it does to nurture and grow an existing, for obvious reasons in that standpoint. It's the same logic when you think about digital marketing strategy and your customer base. It's going to be more cost effective for you to re-engage your high value customers and to re-engage potential new customers that are in your marketing bucket at a later date, rather than it would be to acquire new customers. The data points you're looking at here on the screen, they are our Mason internal data for the past year across all of our ecom clients, rolled up and averaged out against the remarketing strategies and what we consider to be mid upper funnel strategies. That would be anything inclusive of lookalike audiences or programmatic display. Again, the point here being that it's more cost effective to re-engage and reacquire an existing high value customer or someone that has engaged with your brand at a later date than it is to acquire a new one off the group. And that's where we come to the leaky bucket approach. If we think about your website as this bucket, your customer base, the traffic that you're driving to the site, that is your water. That bucket is completely full once you have healthy traffic coming to the site. And you want to make sure healthy traffic's coming to the site. We don't want high bounce rates. We don't want low page view consumption. We don't want low engagement post-click. The quality of the water and the way it's able to mix with your brand is very crucial to this. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if we're not constantly filling it, that bucket is also leaking at the same time. And the reason it's leaking is because of pixels and tracking. Google and Facebook, to put it very simply, have pixels on your website that track users and bucket them into up to 180-day windows of time where they are available for you to remarket to. This also comes true for high-value customers that constantly visit your brand. If you stop the flow of traffic, if you stop the flow of the water, the bucket will continue to become more empty over time. The long-term risk of this is a few things. One, increasing the frequency to the people that are still left in the bucket, creating a poor user experience for those people because they're constantly seeing the same types of messages over and over again at a higher frequency because they are the only ones left in the bucket. It also will affect your cost metrics long term. Now, if we were to think about a point where we have cash flow struggles and we need to focus on profitability, one reaction could be to go towards brand search and remarketing. Over time, as that bucket continues to drop, remarketing's performance will also begin to decline. When you try to re-enter the market later, if the market surges and production comes back to full capacity, we now have to not only fill the bucket up, but also acquire customers. And now we're looking at higher cost per averages than we would have had we kept that bucket filled and kept it filled with quality users in the long term. The real risk too of having this empty bucket that we're talking about long term is you do not want to end up in a situation where we get to November, December, the key shopping timeframes that most of our e-com clients drive more than 60% of their annual revenue. You don't want to have an empty bucket at that point. Because at that point, we're not just talking about volume. We don't just need to drive and push as much volume and as much revenue as possible, but we also need to be as efficient and profitable as possible. And that really only comes to us as an available strategy if we have that bucket to dip back into. So recapping these negative impacts of allowing that to empty completely is draining that customer pool. The CAC is higher when you try to re-enter. And the one that we didn't really talk about here is imagine a world where your highest value customer that you should be nurturing constantly now does not see you in the market anymore. They don't see your brand, your storytelling, your positioning at this time. And someone else does. Someone else grabs them into their ecosystem, into their brand story. That's a possible loss of a high value customer that has really strong LTV attached to it. That's one negative impact that can happen. But there's ways to stay in front of people and to keep the bucket full that still don't break the bank and still don't cost much. And that comes from a pivot of strategies. When we think about the strategies that we have available to us, for the most part, for e-com, we're focused on driving either add to cart actions or purchases, really high intent triggers that drive towards revenue. We can change those objectives to allow ourselves to take advantage of the more cost-efficient CPMs that exist today, because we know for a fact that within our internal data set, there's a CPM trend that shows that it's cheaper to be in market today, which means that it's cheaper to get more impressions today and thereby cheaper to get more traffic to the site today if you do the strategy correctly. That happens across the entire marketing funnel, which we know exists. And those consideration and awareness strategies that we think about at the top are really where we can make that impact and drive those high touch brand storytelling, brand value bringing interactions that prove to be extremely crucial to future success, because it allows us to remarket to either a video view or a nice traffic volume that we've driven to the site. So how do we do it, really? I mean, I'm telling you we have to fill this bucket. I'm telling you you can do it at a cheaper cost, but it may not make a whole lot of sense or even sound like something that's worthwhile to do because it's not real at this point in time for you. So I want to try to make it real for you with a real life example of how we here at Mace Interactive pivoted a strategy for one of our clients during this time around March 16th. The problem occurred where the client realized that they had some production challenges and we had to pivot very quickly. Cash flow was a big concern due to economic difficulties. So we need to control the costs. Now, what we did was we held a few planning sessions with them, delivered a new strategy to pivot away from an e-commerce centric, purchase centric, revenue centric type of strategy and more towards brand storytelling, while also reducing their costs, reducing their spend, and at the same time, focusing on not just storytelling and social responsibility and social sensitivity, but also filling the bucket and keeping it full for future use. And our results were very successful. We maintained a similar level of traffic while also cutting the cost specifically. To show you what the trend looks like, we've got our spend outlined here in yellow, along with the traffic in purple. Right around the 16th is where life changed. Right around the 25th is where we had to cut costs. And right around April 1st is where we launched a new strategy. And as you can see, what happened was we effectively dropped the overall cost and investment from the client, while also at the same time maintaining a consistent level of traffic. This was a huge win. We also shifted the messaging to video assets and brand positioning that's very authentic and real, that drove tons of engagement, over thousands of likes on the actual posts, with hundreds and thousands of views on the actual videos themselves. And this all happened very quickly. The big win for us, though, was the bounce rate. Because again, we can't just focus on driving volume, it has to be quality volume. And the trend line that we have here for you is essentially flat. So not only did we pivot the strategy and focus on traffic and keeping the bucket full, but we did that in a way where we were still keeping the right people into the site. We've removed the actual scale of the click volume and the cost volume because we want to make sure we respect our clients' confidentiality and not share that. But the trend lines are the trend lines, and this is how the whole strategy played out. This is the data trend and focus on really like the hard science between the strategy and how we approach things. Because of the fact that life changed and because of the fact that we had to react to client needs and launch a new strategy, right? All that happened very quickly. The soft side of it too, the soft science is really more about the positioning and the storytelling. So as you can see on the left here, this is a similar client, same client from the data set you just saw. New shirts, seasonal drops, really focused on shop now, call to actions, really emphasizing what we would think would be like a best-in-class e-com approach for social marketing, right? We have new products, we're emphasizing our American heritage, call to action is shop now, and we're emphasizing that it's a new spring collection. This is being pushed out to high-value customers, new customers, and everywhere across your marketing. The pre-position. The post-position is more focused on authenticity, social relevance, social awareness, social sensitivity, staying in the know with the brand, hoping that our customers are staying healthy and being well, and really just emphasizing to high value existing and new that while our factories are temporarily closed, we will be back and we will be stronger than ever. American made, proudly American made. We're paying tribute to our rich heritage. Learn more about us here. This specific ad here is focused on driving users into the site to, again, fill the bucket up. And the page that they landed on was focused on the American heritage and story and history of the brand itself. Again, when we look at the actual live comments of the ad and look at those post comments, we see that there's tons of engagement from the actual customers commenting at how much they love and appreciate the brand itself, that they can't wait to see them back, that they can't wait to get more shirts, that they love the storytelling within the creative. Very positive reaction. And the bounce rate itself shows that people are still browsing product and still browsing the actual content on the site, giving us that quality traffic in our bucket so that we can remarket to these people later once things go back to somewhat of a normalized situation. So what does that all mean? It means that you can effectively keep your customer bucket full, but do it at a fraction of the cost. Pivot your strategies, pivot your objectives, pivot your brand positioning, provide value, be socially relevant, and make sure that you keep this full. To recap these key takeaways here, just want to emphasize again that it is more cost effective to nurture existing customers than it is to acquire new ones. Pivoting your strategy will be crucial to keep consistent traffic volume while also at a controlled cost. You should be discussing internally what that pivot looks like. In this situation, again, specifically, we're talking about where a brand or client has supply chain, production, fulfillment challenges. There are other situations where those challenges don't exist, but we still have to be conscious of the fact that there's more traffic and browsing happening today than there traditionally is during the holiday season. Shopify reported some data trends, I believe it was last week, that showcased that all of the traffic across all their Shopify sites is up higher than it would be in a normal Q4 period. People are browsing, people are shopping. We can pivot the strategy to make sure that we stay in front of those people so that later on, when production does come back, we can do that. But the fact of the matter is that we can still focus on promotions as well as pivots and strategy to help control costs to fill the bucket up. Storytelling is going to be crucial for brand positioning, making sure that you promote the authenticity of the brand, making sure that you stay as real as possible. People really do appreciate that and respond well to that, especially if you have resonating content on site post-click that they can engage with or sign up with possibly on a newsletter so that you can re-engage them later, and provide value to your customers for later possibly as well. There's ways that you can strategize a download for future use of a coupon of sorts so that you're providing value today along with the storytelling so that when you come back into the mix later, you're able to re-engage those users and tell them, hi, we're here, we're ready now. Thinking long-term is really the name of the game for this approach. We can't react with complete cost control and not think that there won't be any negative impacts in the future. By adjusting strategies, controlling costs, we can effectively invest in ourselves today for future success tomorrow. And that's really the main takeaway we really want you to have here. Not to mention, again, just to reiterate that it is more cost effective to nurture an existing customer than it is to acquire a new one.
Thanks, Adrian. So we're gonna that's sort of close to the end of what we wanted to talk about today. Again, we're trying to provide value. We can do Q&A. There's a functionality in Webinar Jam to ask questions. So and there's a little bit of delay between when I talk and you guys see it because of the software. So please ask questions in the chat. We'll see them. We'll get to them. We have some time set aside for that. But the three analogies are in terms of the bucket are the one analogy is the leaky bucket. The three examples are the EV industry. If General Motors decides to cut all production on EVs, which they're doing, and people are going to buy electric vehicles, EVs later, where are they going to buy them? Well, not at General Motors. They're going to buy them at Tesla or at BMW, whoever is not cut, right? So that's a long term. They need to think about what they're doing and not be cutting that spend. I can acknowledge the economic reality by admitting to you that we've had to furlough some employees. We've been able to bring a good portion of them back because we're investing not in today. This is not about today. We're investing in 90 days from now or the long term from now. And then the third example of under the leaky bucket analogy was talk about our client Gitman and how they've been able to pivot very quickly given serious realities and serious restrictions. Factories closed. How do they stay in the game and stay in front of people in that environment? So that's sort of where we are. We've got some questions here. Oh, look, Joel's here and he hears that I stole his thunder.
Hey, Joel.
Hi, Kim. Greetings from Pennsylvania. The slides are disappearing so fast. Are they available for review? Yes, we have recorded this. We won't put the slides out because some of the customer data is in there, but the recording of this will be available. Anna Randall. Adrian, I'm going to let you handle this one. What is the first step I should take right now to get my strategy aligned? You want to handle that one, Mr. Padron?
Could you repeat the first part? It cut out.
Anna Randall asks, what is the first step I should take right now to get my strategy aligned?
What is the first step to take? The first step to take would be, I believe, to just take a look at your current traffic flow, analyze the cost that it's having to get that in there, measure the conversion rates you have. Without knowing the full situation that you have, Anna, I think that taking a hard look at your data set to find trends and cost metrics, and then working with your internal team or working with your marketing team, set yourself some goals for what types of costs you should control, what that level is, and what goals you have for traffic volume for the future, so you can adjust the strategy to meet those needs. It's a little bit of a complex approach because really the first step that I ever take to any situation with regard to shifts in strategy is to do a heavy data analysis and data pool.
Thanks. If you need to follow up, Anna, you can do that. Jessica asks, what are some of the best ways brands can start to increase their AOV, their average order value? Can't offer subscriptions. Is it wrong to increase free shipping to orders over $100? Adrian, do you want to handle that one too? What are some of the best ways brands can start to increase their average order value, given they can't order subscriptions?
Can't order subscriptions. Best way to increase average order value would be possibly a bundling approach. That's one way that we've seen success. You can also offer small discounts, which usually does boost up AOV slightly, depending on the margin that you have there with the actual cost per. Those are two examples. I think that really the bundling makes the most sense. So if you're purchasing product A, we will now give you product B at either a small adjustment or a bundled discount overall. But when you combine those two items or three items, the AOV is higher than it would have been just with one product.
The other way to answer that, Jessica, is, so one of the things we do with our clients, depending on their service level, is load them into some software that looks at things. So once we've ingested your data, to Adrian's point, and we know what you're selling to people, we're going to be able to develop a list of customers that says things like high value customers or budget shoppers. So we can find out that all the budget shoppers tend to buy, I'm making this up, a pen, right? But we can find out using our software is that maybe the high value customers, the higher AOV, might buy either this or this. making this up with the things I have in my desk. Okay, guitar slide and earpod case. So let's say that these are high value customers, and they have the highest average order value. Jessica, we would find a list of everyone who bought this, but not this, and we would send them a marketing message saying, buy this too, and vice versa, right? Everyone bought this, your average high value customers buy one or the other. Everyone who bought this, well, you should buy this one too. So you can use data, and you can ingest the data that's in your platform and your back end to create a real marketing strategy. Anna, should I plan ahead for Black Friday already? Yes, we think that Black Friday starts in June. We've said this for years. June is traditionally a time when people shop less online. They're beginning to think about their vacations. Things like swimsuits and skincare lines will do better in June. But in general, people are shopping less in June and July and August. That doesn't mean we should stop marketing to them. It means we should be using Instagram ads to push ourselves in front of people so that they're aware of the customer.
Yeah.
Back to the idea. Thanks, Jessica. Going back to the idea of the leaky bucket. If you're not introducing yourself to someone now, how are you going to be able to remarket to them later during Black Friday? And again, Adrian's data, remarketing, $30 a sale, acquisition targeting, $70 a sale. I would rather get a sale at $30 rather than $70, but you can't do that unless you're filling your bucket and introducing yourself to customers now. Mr. Padron, Lindsay asks, how do you know when the right timing is to start pushing promotions instead of focus on storytelling? How do you know when it's the right time to start pushing promotions instead of focusing on storytelling?
I think it comes down to business needs and business cases, really. Anna's question is, what's the first step here? This question is somewhat related to that. It's going to depend upon cash flow needs and things like that. We have some clients that are pushing flash sales to get cash injections. We have some that are having more evergreen site-wide sales because they just need to do that. The right time, I think, depends upon your customer base, the competitive marketplace, and your cash flow needs. But one of the crucial first steps that I would add to the data analysis would be pivoting messaging to make sure that you're not being tone deaf, that you have a socially relevant, socially sensitive message out in the market, talking to different buckets of people, high values, new, and repeat visitors. The timing, I think, would become more relevant to your actual needs on cash flow.
Thanks. Not a high. I know you. Your question is, would you recommend for a new fashion luxury brand to launch now or to wait a bit more, with insights showing that online transactions are still in the negative? So I don't want to come across as self-serving because I run an advertising agency. So my default position is going to be, no, we should start now. But let's take that with a grain of salt. It is cheaper to get in front of customers now than it was 3 months ago, or than it will be 3 months from now. I believe that we're going to come out of this in one way or another. It is cheaper to get in front of customers now. And I believe it's Adrian's analogy of the leaky bucket. You should be, especially if you're a new brand, you should be filling your bucket now. Now, whether that means with paid media, which is most of what we do, or whether it means with SEO, which we also do, or whether it means influencer marketing, which we don't do a lot of, is a separate issue, right? I do know who you are, so I don't want to, usually I get these questions and I say, without knowing your business, I do know your business a little bit. My advice would be to find the cheapest way to get in front of people to fill your bucket. My sense is that might be reaching out to influencers who also are sitting at home right now. If I were going to launch a new brand today that was in the $500 to $1,000 price range, I would be focusing on filling my bucket in the cheapest way possible. And I think in that price range, it might be focusing on influencers and striking up partnerships with them and saying, how can I give some product to make that work? Do you have anything to add to that, Adrian?
Yeah, I think you could think about how you position the brand. So one way, if you had, and without knowing this question, I can't see the chat. If you have a luxury brand, let's say it was gowns or something like that, you could position the messaging to be more about virtual dinner parties and video chats with friends that still want to look and feel nice. So you can position the story in that way. If you're trying to drive sales at the same time, it would be the perfect opportunity, since there are so many people consuming content online, to present some brand storytelling and introduce yourself. I think video is the best way to do that. People are on their phones. There are more impressions available at a cheaper cost because so many people are spending time on social media platforms. That's the perfect time to do a branding video at a very low cost per view with a reach or awareness type objective. And those video views also do act, just in case anyone doesn't know this, they do act as their own bucket. So while your website traffic acts as a bucket for you to remarket to, video view campaigns can also act as a bucket for you to remarket to later on.
We have a client, Lulu Frost. I don't know if everyone knows who they are. They're a great brand. They're vintage New York inspired pieces. So they have a line that's inspired by the very specific font and details and relief that were on the numbers of the Plaza Hotel before it was turned into condos. It's a cool range of jewelry. What they're doing now, what their founders doing now, it's a lot of live Instagram videos, right? And it's not the kind of thing you can hire an agency to do. There's no circumstance under which you want me or Adrian or anyone who works with us to be doing Instagram live videos about your product. That's you should be doing that. We're not the right people for that. Conceptually, if it were men's watches or motorcycles or something, but they're doing it on their own. And I think it's great. I think it's great that Lisa Lulu Frost is spending a lot of time doing, and I have nothing to do with it, but I think it's great that she's spending a lot of time on her own doing these live videos, and she's styling and she's doing virtual sessions with friends, and they're talking about the way to make things work, which is sort of relevant to Kim's question here. Adrian, this is for you. This is definitely an Adrian question instead of a Brook question. This person is a stylist who does closet clean out tutorial videos and has a business around wearing the right pieces and helping consult on that. And that's obviously changed a little bit with videos, right? That's not the person's house anymore. So our question is, are you seeing more clicks on IG stories, on Instagram stories than on Instagram posts, right? Are you seeing more clicks on Instagram stories than you are on Instagram posts because she's doing styling and closet and clean out tutorial videos and she's unsure which channel has the most users?
So our approach to that would be to be in both spaces, being across stories and feed. That way you can hit your customer where they are. That's one of the approaches that we usually take, is don't assume the customer is only in one spot. Assume that they are everywhere and meet them in all of those places. You know, it's funny, this is something we were just talking about with one of our other clients that makes fine Italian goods, and they usually do a lot of on-site consultation and fittings. We're recommending to them to do a pivot towards digital experiences and closet consultations and wardrobe consultations with clients over video chat. So I think, you know, to answer your question more pointedly on whether stories or feed is the right answer, I would say to do both. But I would also add that stories is a very important space to be in because it has been a growing portion of the media mix for us. We've seen more success with stories. I want to say every quarter, stories is taking up a larger portion of budget and providing more success, as long as the content is enriching and thought-provoking, as well as providing value. I'd love to talk to you more about what you're doing exactly with these consultations, because I think there is a cool opportunity today with everything we're doing across video webinars for how you can do video consultations with users over phones.
So I think that's close to the end of the questions. If someone pops another one in, we'll answer it. But thank you, Kim and Anna and Nada and Jessica and Lindsay, for sticking around and for asking these questions. Jamie Gleason, your question was not a question. Greetings from PA. Hi. So thank you all for showing up today. We appreciate it. Again, we're going to this will be turned into a blog post. We'll have a downloadable video so you can watch it again then. And I'm sure Mira and Ashley will follow up with everyone who attended and ask if they have any direct questions. I think in the meantime, we're going to let this go. I think, Adrian, you can wind this down. We sincerely appreciate all of you making time to sit with us on Friday. And I hope to see you in the real world where we can have martinis and oysters and things together soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.